watch was out early, and people reacted as they had been trained to do. Training was very important, and it did keep the death toll low. It was a model. That preparedness program was a model for the whole nation across the country in years to come then. And, you know, a warning is, needs to have action. And high-tech of all high-tech cannot do the job unless preparedness is there. Preparedness was there that day, and it saved many, many people. The watch is a warning, and it needs to be keyed into, and if a watch is out, people should take necessary precautions when the storms are in the area.
Now, back in 1966, again, the National Weather Service did put out a tornado watch at 11 o'clock in the morning, and in a few moments we're going to take a look at weather maps from back in 1966 to show you exactly what the parameters were, the conditions were for that day to create a tornado. Thanks a lot, Phil, for telling us that story. Let's go in and talk to Doug Peterman. And you were in that tornado. You were, what, 17 years old that day. Tell us what it was like and what happened.
Well, I was recently out of high school. I was attending Barber College in North Topeka, and I had an apartment over there. That evening when we got out of school, some friends came up, and we decided to go to out to the Capitol Kart Speedway and race go-karts for the evening. While we were there, we experienced the humidity. It was just a hot, stuffy evening. And then the tornado warning sounded. That age, we were scared, of course, so we headed for our car, got it on the radio. The storm was in the southwest. We decided going south wasn't a good option for us, so we tried to get back to our apartment in North Topeka. As we were racing down the boulevard to the north, police cars were going the opposite direction. We're in an old 49 Ford, probably topping it out about 80 miles an hour. They kept coming on the radio with warnings that it was getting into Topeka. So when we got across the river, we got to my apartment over on North Central and found out the landlady had locked us out. She'd already gone to the basement. So one of the friends had an aunt and uncle that lived over by Billard Airport. So we went across the Sardu Bridge, and at that time there was this big black ominous cloud over the city, probably in the Washburn area. We were having a lot of wind. We got to the apartment, we got to their house. The wind blew my glasses off as I got out of the car, broke it up. We got in the basement just before it came through the area.
And obviously things worked out okay for you. Any injuries for yourself or any of your friends?
No, we were safe. We were fortunate.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot to Doug and, of course, Phil from the National Weather Service. We're going to have a lot more stories, and coming up in just a moment or two, I had the opportunity to speak to Rick Douglas in Phoenix, Arizona, formerly of WREN Radio, and stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. And joining us this afternoon is a very special person from Topeka. His name is Rick Douglas, a very famous person that helped out in the big tornado of 1966, a former disc jockey from WREN Radio. Rick's in Phoenix, Arizona. How you doing, Rick?
I'm just fine, Bill. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Thank you very much. In your own words, tell us what it was like in 1966 when you were a young man looking at that tornado coming right at you.
It was a very uplifting experience, obviously. I was a young reporter filling in, really, in the news department. I wasn't even actively on the news staff at the time, but as you well know, in small-town radio, when there's a storm approaching, everybody takes up the banner and runs with it, and I took a news cruiser that night and wound up on Burnett's Mound in time to see the tornado coming up over the hill right at me.
And when it was coming right at you, how many minutes or seconds did you have before the tornado struck your location, and what did you do? What did you feel like? We have pictures from the newspaper back in 1966 what you looked like a few minutes later. Tell us what it was like.
Well, my hair hasn't changed much since then. I immediately turned around and started back down the switchback road that comes down Burnett's Mound toward Gage Boulevard. And it cuts back and forth, and that's when I made my famous on-the-air report about a tornado sighting, take cover in the southwestern part of town. And I got down to Gage Boulevard, and police officer Dave Hathaway was stopping traffic under the I-70 overpass. And I tried to call in again after watching several homes picked up off of the mound and exploded in midair, and they told me to stand by, and there wasn't time. So I threw the microphone down in the seat of the news cruiser, and I took off and tried to cross Gage Boulevard and get up under the overpass where Dave Hathaway was getting most of the people that he had stopped to tuck under the cement up there and have some safety. And I was caught in the storm. They picked me up off the ground. I remember I was off the ground. My feet were dangling in the air, and I was about 270 pounds at the time. And my coat ripped up the back. One sleeve went off one arm. The other sleeve went off the other arm. And I was then flat on the ground, sliding backwards, digging my hands into the ground, trying to keep from sliding anymore. And wound up engaged with one of those large cement pillars that hold up the interstate overpass.
So quite the experience for you, huh?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we've got about a minute left, and I think a lot of folks in Topeka would like to know how you're doing. What are you doing now in Phoenix, Arizona? And you may want to say hi to your friends.
I'd like to say hello to everybody back there, and I miss you all. I haven't been there in 18 years, and I don't know when I can get back, but I'd love to. I'm doing fine. I'm in Phoenix in the advertising business, and I do some announcing once in a while, and I love to dance.
Oh, you love to dance. Any special dance?
I started out doing most of the country dances, waltz and two-step and so on, and now I'm into West Coast swing and ballroom a little bit more.
Well, you sound like you're doing great, and I'm sure everybody in Northeast Kansas really appreciates the work you did back in 1966. I had the pleasure of looking back on some of the stuff that you did do and listening to stories. And I, of course, wasn't here back in 1966, but I can tell you, I think you did a very good job. And you be safe in Phoenix, Arizona.
Thank you. It's 111 here. I miss that nice weather back there sometimes.
All right, and you take care. Again, special thank you to Rick Douglas, formerly of WREN here in Topeka. Stay with us. We'll have more from Tornado Watch 201 in just a moment.
A cellular phone? I just don't think I can afford the monthly rate. Yeah, but I know a simple 2-minute phone call to my wife will cost me a fortune. 10 cents a minute? When? In the middle of the night? That's a dime anytime.
Cellular One's Dime Anytime plan. The best cellular plan in town, guaranteed. Call 273-1234. Cellular One. Life is easier with one.
When Kansas storms damage your roof, call Vincent Roofing in Topeka. Whether it's flat roofing for commercial needs or shingles for your residence, Vincent Roofing can do it all. You expect knowledgeable, trained professionals to advise you of your roof problems and needs, and that's exactly what Vincent Roofing has provided Northeast Kansans for more than 50 years. When we put our name behind the work we do for you, we do it with pride. Not in just the product or service, but in having you as a customer. For all your roofing needs, call Vincent Roofing at 233-9603. Vincent Roofing, where trust is a tradition.
At the Prudential, we know that inspiration can strike at any time, and that the best results come from the best laid plans. You need to have the right tools and know how to use them. You need an eye for detail. And maybe most important of all, you need to know when to call in a pro.
Take a minute to call David Hauser at 266-5608 and build your future on the rock.
Welcome back to Tornado Watch 201. That's the sound. We hope we never hear the tornado siren going off. We'll tell you more about preparedness in just a few moments. But as weather people, it's interesting to go back 30 years and take a look at weather maps, what kind of conditions that exist. So we're going to talk to Mike Aculoff from the National Weather Service here in Topeka, and we're going to show you the actual weather maps, how it showed weather developing that day.
Right. It was a classic situation. The day started out kind of cool and cloudy early, but evolved into a classic supercell day, thunderstorms and tornadoes. It warmed up.
There's a
We had
map right there.
A low-pressure area down in West Texas there. A warm front moved across our area, then turned into a cold front the next day, actually, as it moved on through. We had very high dew points, which is the amount of moisture in the air. Aloft, at, say, 10,000 feet, we had a very strong jet stream that moved across the area at over 100 miles an hour. So it's kind of your classic setup late in the day for tornadoes to occur.
And that was the cold front that went through that helped cause it.
Right, that was the one that pushed through late that night. Here we see our damaged path. It began in southwest Topeka, across Burnett's Mound, 29th and Gage. At its widest part now, 29th and Gage, towards the Washburn area. Every building there was damaged, some totally destroyed. On north towards Central Park, the downtown area, Santa Fe shops where it threw around rail cars, rail engines, and it finally ended north of Billard Airport. At its maximum width, though, it's a half a mile wide. It was rated the F5 on the F5 scale, Fujita scale, and it became the costliest twister in American history at that time. $100 million worth of damage.
And that's in 1966
right.
dollars.
And it still stands in the top 10 of the damage across the country.
Now, that day, Manhattan had a tornado. I mean, it was a busy tornado day.
It was a busy day, right. Wakefield was hit. Manhattan had a lot of damage to homes. Kansas State University, over $2 million worth of damage. So it was a very active day, and a death on east of here near Jarbelow in Leavenworth County.
And the day started off, a lot of folks come into the weather office and say it's too cool for a tornado, but the day started off as a cool day.
Started off cool. There was a warm front to our south. It moved north, passed over Topeka just at the right time as the jet stream came through, and the low-pressure area, and that did it.
And boom, there you have it.
Right.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike, from the National Weather Service here in Topeka. Stay tuned. We've got more guests telling stories about the tornado. Well, it does look like we have a lot of stories to tell you, a lot of things going on, and we have a father and son team here, right?
Right, yeah.
We have Mark, and we also have Howard. And Howard, I'm going to have you tell your story first.
Well, my whole family was headed for Washburn University, and our oldest son, who isn't with us tonight, had a recital there in McVicker Chapel, and we were just at 17th and Washburn, and I told my wife, I said, I think we ought to turn around and go home. I saw the clouds, and they were brutal, green and bumpy, and we went on and went to the recital, and by the time we got up to McVicker Chapel, they were sounding the sirens. And so we got in there and told the people in there that they were sounding the sirens, and so we headed for the basement. And we got down to the southwest room, and it wasn't big enough for us, and they didn't have a good piano. So we went into the southeast room, which was a good thing, because if we'd have been in the southwest room, we'd all been dead, all of us. It was completely bricked up. I was crouched when the tornado hit right next to the door leading out to the hall. And when I finally stood up and the tornado had passed, I turned to the door to see if I could walk out and get out into the hallway to get out. It looked like a stonemason that just bricked it up. It wasn't a slot in there open.
Back 30 years ago, we were all told to go to the southwest corner of the basement.
Yeah.
And fortunately, you were not in the southwest corner.
Yeah, fortunately.
Else you might have been seriously hurt. And that's one good thing that came out of this tornado was that's not true.